Okay.
Okay, looks like we're ready to go. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone in attendance this evening. Becky, is there anyone on Zoom? No. Okay, great. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the public comment, and prior to asking for a public comment, I'm going to read a statement that I prepared. The statement is called Audience Participation During Public Comment. While the Open Meetings Law, Code of Iowa, Chapter 21, gives the public the right to attend meetings of governmental bodies, the law does not require cities to allow public input at council meetings. The council may permit an audience member to speak at its meetings, but is not required to do so. Without an invitation to speak, everyone is simply an observer listening and watching the deliberations. It is a best practice to allow public comments in some fashion, as it can be seen as an effective citizen engagement tool and help council understand community needs. To help prevent a public comment period from becoming prolonged and unproductive, cities find it useful to establish rules for public comments. For example, limitations can be placed on the time and manner of public participation to help maintain efficiency. Those wishing to address the council can be asked to identify themselves by name and address and avoid repeating what has already been said. The Hampton City Council places an item near the beginning of the agenda called public comment, where audience members are allowed to address the council. Individuals are encouraged to register in advance by contacting City Hall, but it is not required. Iowa law prohibits the council from conducting deliberations under public comment of topics that are not listed on the agenda. The public comment period is not a time for a citizen to expect feedback or discussion of what was commented on. Elected officials may make a comment or suggestion of future agenda items later in the meeting during their council report, or they can decline to do so. Elected officials are not required to give a report. As the presider at a Hampton City Council meeting, the mayor or mayor pro tem has the authority to recognize those who will speak and enforce rules relating to order and decorum. A 3-minute time limit is allowed for each public comment, but may be extended at the discretion of the presider. Citizens invited by the mayor or mayor pro tem during the public comment portion of the meeting will approach the podium and identify themselves, state the city in which they reside, make their comments, and then return to their seat. Participants on Zoom may offer public comment, but must first identify themselves and the city in which they reside after being invited to do so by the presider. No Zoom public comments will be allowed from anonymous participants. Citizens making comments in the council chambers need to stand behind the podium to speak into the microphone to ensure all can hear what is said and for adequate audio and video recording of their comments. Speakers must refrain from personal attacks, foul or abusive language, and maintain a civil and courteous manner and tone. If order and decorum are not maintained, the violator could be removed by the officer of the Hampton Police Department attending the meeting as requested by the mayor or the mayor pro tem. Those on Zoom in violation will be muted. That being said, is there any public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none. Next item on the agenda is the nuisance update and water main break summary. Doug and Mark.
I just have a quick update in reference to nuisance notices. We sent out about 20 notices in the last 10 days, and we have 2 court cases coming up tomorrow, but otherwise, everything else is status quo. If there's questions. No questions, Doug?
Okay. Well, before it turns into a nuisance, staff is going to be doing some larvicide this week for mosquito control. With all the wet weather we've been having, we've noticed we got some standing water in some of the same old areas where we typically larvicide at. Basically, larvicide is a puck of chemical that we toss out in those certain areas and try to get a handle on any mosquitoes that might be productive. We haven't had to do a lot of spraying the last couple of years due to the drought that we've had. There hasn't been much for mosquitoes, but I'm anticipating with all the wet weather we've been having that's probably just a matter of time. So before it becomes a nuisance, we're going to start that process this week. I got a handful of new notices out. I got a few deadlines coming up. Some, I think, a couple maybe court. I think I have some court coming up here too. Grass and weeds notices are up to almost 70 notices sent out at the end of today. We still have some more checks tomorrow. However, I will say that most, if it's not a vacant property, most of the properties are complying this year, which is nice. So I think we had to send out maybe 7 last week on the nuisance mowing, and then we're obviously on the 3rd round. So we won't be issuing any municipal infractions until we get to that 3rd round, past that, and see where we're at probably next Monday sometime. Hopefully we don't get too many repeat offenders. The water main last week, as everybody knows, apparently a hot topic, but it actually went very well. We did have to do a boil water notice, which is new for the years I've been here for the most part, but honestly, we did that on a contingency effort because we had a hard time keeping up with the water that was leaking. It was a very large main. It was hard to access. Took a lot of trash pumps to try to keep up with that. So just to be on the very safe side, which we always do, we issued that boil water notice. So. But other than that, I'm very pleased with staff. We had to take out some storm sewer that was in the way. That got put back. We rebuilt part of a storm sewer intake in that area. We're going to let things settle here for a few weeks, and once things firm up a little bit there, we're going to go ahead and we'll get some patchwork done. And while we're at it, it was a corner where 2 sidewalks intersect, so we're going to put a couple ADAs in there while we got tore apart. So we're going to just try to make the best out of it, even though it was unforeseen. Any questions?
Any
I'd like to-
questions? Go ahead,
I'd
Barry.
like to thank you. You know, it's a blessing that we had the equipment and manpower to do that right away.
Thank you.
Like our incident last year with the sewer main, the whole United States is sitting on a ticking time bomb with infrastructure,
Absolutely.
and it could happen any time. Thankful it wasn't at 30 below in the winter, you know.
Yeah.
And I've got a question that some people had questioned me about. So what about your home filters, your softeners, and your ice maker?
So we got,
As
yeah,
far as them getting, bacteria in them.
right. I guess my recommendation, if you want to be on the ultra safe side, just throw your ice cubes out, remake some new, you'll be fine. If you really want to flush your, with some cold water, run your cold water or something here or there to flush out your own lines. We took test samples. I'm really not too concerned about bacteria per se at this point. Like I said, it was one of those, we didn't lose full pressure. We still had 23 feet of tower level. We fixed the repair under pressure because some of the valves, we couldn't get a full shutdown. So it was actually better the way we repaired it because we did repair it under pressure and live. It's just more dangerous for staff to do it that way, but we really didn't have a choice. So, when they got the samples back, everything was good. So we lifted the boil notice, and, honestly, it was probably a good dry run in case we ever had something really major happen. So it worked out well.
Thank you.
I had a question. How was the coordination like with emergency management? It seems like Joel McWilliams, and I know Bill, you were helping with distribution of water. So I mean, it was a nice coordinated effort, I think, of different parties in the community.
Joel McWilliams, back to the tools, I got to give a big thank you to him because he showed up on his own. He brought a light tower that they have at emergency management. He just brought that knowing that you can never have enough light. We don't own one at the city, and that made a big difference for the repairs and being able to see, because obviously it was late at night. I think we started turning the water back on at about 2 a.m. That's when we got things rolling again. But yeah, Joel was exceptional on that and really helped out a lot. And then as far as the bottled water, I think Ron and Joel worked together on that a little bit.
Yeah,
And
I'll
I
just
think that went well.
I'll just mention that the distribution, we distributed cases, 32 bottles, which is a case of water at the fairgrounds from 1:30 to 6 p.m. And I think there's about 400 cases. And thanks to Bill Hiddle again and Joel McWilliams, who also helped distribute, and then city employee Jeremy Bidwell was there. And the distribution went well. It wasn't overly busy, it was just steady for the entire time, so went well.
I did have somebody reach out to me and said that the next time this happens, if you could put it out on Facebook ahead of time so they know.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, we'll do that.
I'll get my crystal ball out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I said, I'm just thankful it wasn't 30 below.
Uh,
And you guys were too.
Were we? Yeah, absolutely we were. Yeah, the storm that come through was a quick one too, so that let us get right back at it. We had a little bit of a delay in the middle, but not much.
Any other questions from council? You have anything else for
No-
us?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the good work that you guys do, so.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, Doug Prowley requesting a temporary camper parking by the airport hangar. Doug, would you like to come to the podium, please?
Good evening. So I first went to Jay about this, and then we talked to Ron, and then now we're here. I have seasonal help that comes up that flies with me in the summertime when we're treating the crops, and they usually come the end of June and last till September. What I'm asking for is the month of July. There's alternatives to putting housing otherwise, like the camper that they stay in. You have it at Beads Lake. Well, every 10 days, I think there you got to move out for 3 days and move back in. The fairgrounds, we can stay there longer, but we have the fair, obviously. And the county parks, we were down at Mallory for a couple years down there. There's no cell phone reception and other things, and we can't stay there longer, and I understand why they have those rules. So I guess what I was asking is if we can put it on the north side of the big hangar that I rent from the city. And I'm not really picky about location, that's just kind of what we had talked about, so. Not trying to make a campground out of it, not, just looking for temporary housing for the guys that help.
And you said he's an employee of
Yeah.
yours?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, he's a new pilot this year.
Councils, any questions?
What about sewer and water?
So we wouldn't have to have that. There's water inside the building. I guess we could hook up for cold water, but there's restroom inside the hangar and stuff. So I think he'd be okay there.
I've got a few more items. Is there any city ordinances against this?
There's a city ordinance against a camper in a yard for more than, I don't know how many days without the police chief's. 7 days. Yeah, so it's it's on public property, so this is a unique
How
request.
about FAA rules?
I don't think there would be a problem with FAA.
What about insurance?
I haven't specifically asked that. I guess it's, our insurance isn't gonna cover your camper.
And that's fine. I mean, it is insured, and we can name, also, or what is that? Also added on, or I can't think of it. Also named.
It's only
additional
gonna be
insurance.
Additional, yeah.
one person.
Right, one person, yeah. One person, one camper, yeah.
We have cameras out there?
Nope.
He's saying no.
That's all I have.
That might be a good idea to add as an additional insured the city.
Yeah, and that's no problem.
Any other questions? I think this is something then we can put on Thursday's agenda. Or Ron, do you?
It's for the month of July?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, we probably should put it on council agenda. If the consensus is to do that? Okay. Put that on for Thursday. I don't think there's a need for you to come unless they want you to be here. It's up to you, Doug.
If it's raining, I might.
You're always invited to a city
All right.
council meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
Good. You can watch this on YouTube.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next item is reviewing the noise ordinance draft. And I'll turn this over to, I guess, Ron?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this draft is kind of a hybrid between a couple of communities, I think Mason City, and it was Marion or what, but, the first page is definitions. The bottom one, noise disturbance, talks about, for the purpose of the chapter, means any transmission of sound across a real property boundary from a source specifically limited by this chapter, which exceeds the sound level limits set forth in Table 1, entitled Maximum Permissible Sound Levels from Limited Sources by Receiving Land Use. And then Table 1 there is listed on the second page by zoning district. So residential district, from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., the decibel level limit would be 60. From 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., the decibel level limit would be 50. In a commercial district, at all times, the limit would be 65 decibels. Industrial district, at all times, 75 decibels. Another key definition is receiving land use. For purpose of this chapter, the use or occupancy of the property which receives the transmission of the sound. So let's say there's a residential property and they're complaining, they would be the receiving land. And so any measurements would be taken in accordance in the proximity from that to the sound, whatever's generating the sound. If you go on down towards the bottom of page 2, noise prohibitions and limited sound sources. The following sound sources are limited by this chapter. No person shall perform, create, cause, or permit a radio, a television set, or musical instrument, or any other device to produce, reproduce, or amplify sound to create a noise which is audible at a distance of 200 feet from such device when operated on or in a motor vehicle. So the first three here are regarding motor vehicles. Number 2, no person shall operate a motor vehicle or other equipment to emit sound through the vehicle radio or other sound system if the sound emitted is plainly audible for more than 200 feet from the vehicle. Number 3, every motor vehicle must at all times be equipped with a muffler and exhaust system in good working order and in constant operation to prevent excessive noise or annoying smoke. And then it lists a few things that constitute evidence of a violation of that section regarding vehicles. And then number 4, animals and birds. No person shall own, possess, or harbor any animal or bird which frequently or for continued durations emits sounds native to the species which are a noise disturbance. I suppose an example of that would be a peacock. You can't have a peacock. They are quite noisy, I think, aren't they? Number 5, radios, televisions, phonographs. I think number 5 is related to within the home, if there's a party or things like that going on in a residential area. To operate or play, you can't operate or play, permit operation of radio, television, drum, musical instrument, amplifiers, or similar devices at a sound level which creates a noise disturbance. A church or clock, carillons, bells or chimes, parades or processions, mobile radio or telephone signal devices, and sanctioned racing events are all exempt from the provisions of this subsection. Number 6 is lawn equipment, and then limits the hours of operation that you can't operate lawn equipment from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Number 7 is chainsaw, same thing, can't operate them from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Generators, unless in case of an emergency, no person shall use or operate a permit or permit the use or operation of a generator between the hours of 10 PM and 7 AM the following morning if such use or operation creates a noise disturbance as defined in this chapter. And then number 9 is construction equipment. Operation of construction equipment between the hours of 7 AM and 10 PM shall not be subject to the limitations set out on Table 1 of this chapter. However, you can't do such operation of construction equipment between 10 PM and 7 AM. And then Section B is exemptions. The first one is for official vehicles such as governmental, police department, fire department equipment, public utility equipment, railroad company equipment. Emergency vehicles such as ambulances, helicopters are exempt from these provisions. Number 2, this is about public address systems. The emission of sound for purpose of alerting persons of the existence of an emergency is exempt. The emission of sound in the performance of emergency work is exempt. Exempt equipment, persons operating the following equipment are exempt from this profession. The provisions of this chapter: farm equipment, snow blowers, and snow plows. Sound equipment or sound made or caused to be made by the city, school, state-owned or hired equipment or facilities for the conduct of city, school, or state operations or events is exempt. Non-professional athletic contests on school properties, school band practice, school band performances between 7 AM and 10 PM would be exempt. The emission of sound made by participants and observers of any parade that has been approved by the police chief would be exempt. Funeral and memorial events of limited duration to include but not limited to the playing of trumpets, bagpipes, discharge of blanks during a gun volley, salute, etc. The emission of sound in discharge of weapons or in fireworks displays approved by the city council or county board of supervisors or when lawfully allowed by city ordinance. And the last exemption is for organized events on the Franklin County Fairgrounds property.
Would dogs be under number 4? A barking dog?
That's what I was thinking.
Thank you.
I got a question on number 5. If number 5 happens in a commercial zone, then all they have to be is 65 or under for the sound level. So let's say Project X has a dance and it gets loud after 10 o'clock, and somebody complains and they say, well, it's not over 65 decibels.
Well, it depends on the complaining property and what district they're in. So if it's a residential district complaining of that, then the officer would take the decibel level reading at that residential property, and the residential numbers would apply. But if it's in commercial, yeah, then the commercial numbers would apply.
Because you have Project X is right on the fringe of residential, so I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the commercial, so it may look like residential is starting across the street, but it might still be commercial zone. I'm not saying it is, but
Right.
that, there is some overlap
Okay.
with zoning. And then, of course, in the AT zone on the Highway 3 and 65, you got a mixed use of commercial and residential, so, yeah.
Another question for the chief. How enforceable do you think this is for you and your folks?
I think this will be easily enforced with the decibel level that we make should be pretty cut and dry. I would assume I've talked a little bit with Mason City Police Chief, and he thought this was a good, he basically said they have no problems enforcing it, so.
Okay. Because I think I'm only going to be for it if you guys can enforce it. If it's going to be a constant battle between he said, she said, and how loud is it here and how loud is it there, and nothing's done, then it's just going to be worthless. But if it can be dealt with and enforced, then I'll be on board.
I just had one question on the construction equipment in 9. I know during the summer with hot weather and stuff, a lot of the concrete cement trucks like to make deliveries early in the morning to beat the heat, to beat the weather, that type of stuff. how would we be able to, you know, because I'm sure a lot of the contractors may be, you know, out of town, but in Franklin County, to make them aware of this to,
Do you think
just for a
that's,
short period of time.
I'm
But
curious,
it could be kind of loud for those people that work nights and they can see this, and I'd hate to see the homeowner or the thing get a violation for something that's loud, so they're trying to put a new driveway or sidewalk or something in.
I'm curious if it's that, or if it's somebody that calls in and says, you woke me up, or it's too loud, or whatever. If it's gonna be based on a complaint basis, or just that no one. I mean, if it's not bothering anybody,
Yeah, but I just hate to have it where,
Yeah.
you know, because I know a couple times that I've had stuff done, it's always been early in the morning, and,
they wanna beat the heat.
yeah.
And I do want to say that if the noise is ongoing, that's going to be easy for us to take care of, say, Project X, we have the music going. But if it's somebody that's out there doing something for 2 seconds for us to get there with this decibel meter, that's going to be where you're
Right.
the issue.
Right.
And times, I think, we just pick the most used times. I mean, we could be flexible with those.
Yeah, just trying to make it easy on you, saying, hey, this guy's gonna finish his sidewalk here in 20 minutes, and then the truck's gonna be gone, that type of stuff.
And then I would also point out on the last page, the last section, enforcement. The provisions of this chapter which prohibit the making, continuing, or causing the making or continuance of a noise disturbance shall be enforced only upon receipt of a complaint made or filed with city officials by a person disturbed by such noise disturbance. So this, with the exceptions of 1, 2, and 3, which are the vehicles. So this is a complaint-based ordinance. So someone would have to complain, they take a call, the police aren't gonna be out patrolling with their decibel meter out the window and,
Yeah.
but the vehicle ones, they will be. So, just so you understand that. And then B talks about police officers will enforce violations of 1, 2, and 3 without such a complaint. And then be guilty of a misdemeanor or municipal infraction. There's also a permit to exceed the limits. The council, on written request for a good cause shown, may grant a special permit to exceed the sound or time limits established in whatever section for specific activities, generally, or for limited times or dates, provided that the sound level does not exceed 75 decibels at the receiving land use. So this is a rough draft. We've put two together, we've tweaked, added a couple of small things between staff. And this needs to go to the city attorney to clean it up. But if you're okay with the content, then we'll do that. Okay, so it won't be ready for Thursday, but I think that if everybody's okay to move on, then we'll.
Okay, Pearsall.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the update on 1st Street Northwest property, and is that
Yes, that's me.
that's you? Okay.
That's the old pharmacy property. Beanstra and Kim, engineer, toured it because he needed to tour it to help him put together a scope of services. So, toured it last week, and that's gonna allow him a better idea of what to put together for scope of services. Also, walked through there with local auctioneer to get some sort of a rough opinion of the value of the contents in there. And there doesn't appear to be a lot of value of the contents in there. There's some small things, there's a handful of things, but the majority of it is junk, and a lot of it that's in the back 1.5 story portions that we plan to demolish can just be demolished when they're demolishing those additions. There's no sense in moving that stuff. he suggested you just pluck out anything of value, which there isn't much, in his opinion, and retain it, maybe off-site and deal with disposal of that. But there's some shelving and things like that. He's gonna look into potential value of some of the shelving that's in there and see if that's worth saving. So, and then Doug, do you wanna give a brief update on what the guys are doing as far as water, keeping the rainwater out?
Yep, the guys are right now doing some framework. They've had some other projects to get to, plus they were helping out on some after the main break last week. But they are working on the steel. They're still going to put steel on the vertical wall, and then they're going to put some steel on the roofing of the single story temporary. And the way we're doing it will give us the ability to maybe salvage some of that, reuse some of that stuff when things are all said and done, when we look at to get to demolition. But guys have been working on it. They were up there today working quite a bit on it, so I'm hoping to have that wrapped up the next few days. But once again, more rain in the forecast, so we're getting to it as quick as we can.
Yeah, and that's all I had on that.
Any questions from the council?
I have a question. Weren't there some medical records in there, or how is that being dealt with?
Well, there are some, we haven't gone through and specifically, looked through all the boxes, but there's some boxes where there's probably some prescription history.
Yeah.
That those will have to be dealt with separately and disposed of properly with shredding, I'm assuming. So, yeah, but nothing as far as drugs or anything like
Yeah,
that. So.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you for that report. Next item on the agenda, the cyber attack insurance protection. Is this you, Ron? Okay.
So there's been a couple of recent, in 2024, a couple of recent situations that cities and counties have found themselves in where they're losing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars through scams, email invoices that they think that appear to be real, that they pay off of, and turns out they aren't real and they're out. So we, as a staff, we talk about it a lot, and we've had some minimal training, but I just feel it's time for us to get some insurance coverage before it happens to us. So I visited with our insurance carrier, Tom, and the cyber coverage policy is, the premium is $4,100, and I told him to get us covered for that before something happens. The most recent one was in West Union. The city of West Union paid an invoice that was emailed to them, looked legit. Their sewer guy looked at it. He said it was legit. They paid it, and they're out $60,000. So, anyway, things happen, and then with AI continuing to impact things, it's just getting tougher to determine what's real and what isn't real. So,
I deal with it every day.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's a mess.
anyway, just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. We're trying to take precautions.
Any questions? Good, thank you, Ron. Next item, discuss municipal code, chapter 16.04, compensation of the mayor pro tem in the absence of the mayor. I'm assuming this is you, Ron?
Yes. So in the mayor's absence, the mayor pro tem is filling in, and then it also talks about compensation. If the mayor pro tem performs the duties of the mayor during the mayor's absence for a continuous period of 15 days or more, the mayor pro tem may be paid for that period, the compensation as determined by the council based upon the mayor pro tem's performance of the mayor's duties and upon compensation of the mayor. So I just wanted to bring it forward so you know that the code says that if the council wishes, you can pay the mayor pro tem more because he's serving for more than 15 days. It doesn't say how much. It's up to your discretion, and it's based upon his performance. So he has to perform well, yes, before you do that. So I just brought it up for discussion.
What's the monthly mayor's wage?
Well, the mayor gets paid, the annual is at 5,000, Becky? I think it's 5,000. And the council is 2,400. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think so. So, but mayor's paid quarterly, I believe. Yeah.
Well, as Mayor Pro Tem, I guess I'm not concerned about the compensation, my opinion.
Yeah, just wanted to bring it up. And if you guys want to give it some thought, and we can talk about it on another agenda or discuss it now, it's up to you.
I think it's up to Jim.
Yeah, if you're not worried about it, then we could be on board with you.
Yeah, I think we should just see how Steve's coming along, and if we need to, we can address it at a future workshop meeting. But for now, I think we can just leave things the way they are.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Well, seeing there's no other items on the agenda, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.